box sets, rule books, campaign books, expansion rule books, setting books. There's kinda too much going on with the library of content that has become officially known as Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition 2014. That's a goofy name for the entire line of D&D products published since the launch of D&D 5th edition in 2014 up until this rapidly approaching 50th anniversary of D&D later in 2024, when they'll be releasing a new core rulebook and henceforth calling all new content D&D 5e 2024. Not sure about these names, but I am certain that this video is and will be the most comprehensive overview of every major D&D 5e 2014 publication ever. Partially because it's the fourth time I'm doing this in the last 4 years, so I've gotten pretty good at quickly summarizing everything you need to know about each book and box based on your experience and level of interest in D&D, but also because D&D is helping us out this year. Their online marketplace now includes concise descriptions and bullet points to highlight the selling points of each major publication for the game, so I will be referencing all of that info right here in this one place for you. Because I'm Bob, this is where we learn how to have more fun playing RPGs together, and just for fun, before we dive in, I dare you to guess how many books and box sets Dungeons & Dragons will have published in the 10-year lifetime of 5th edition. This isn't graded, so don't overthink it, but put your answer down in the comments, pause the video if you do want to think about it for a second, but if I did the math right, the answer is both weirdly obvious and shocking, if intentional. 50 books and box sets for 5e 2014 right up to this 50th anniversary of D&D, with the new core rulebook being number 51. Well, number 1 for when I make this video again next year. And I don't know if that was pure luck because some of these books and boxes have gone out of print, and then some of them have had their content reprinted in new books, so it's hard to say if that was planned, but here we go. If you're a total beginner to tabletop role-playing games or TTRPGs like Dungeons & Dragons, then I strongly suggest you start by buying nothing, because there are many ways to test the waters of this hobby for free. Rewatch that opening scene of Stranger Things, or maybe the 30-minute version of D&Diesel. That's how I used to show people who had no idea what D&D was like. Then download the free quick start set for Shadowdark RPG. This is technically a different game from D&D 5e, but there are some really good reasons for a beginner to start by trying this quick start version first. So, 1, it is basically the same game mechanics. Shadowdark uses all the same dice as D&D. It teaches you all the same terminology, like checks and hit points, armor class and advantage. It uses all the same character statistics, like strength and dexterity. Characters have a background, ancestry, class, and levels, and they fight owlbears and gelatinous cubes and dragons. But 2, the Shadowdark Quick Start set gives you all of that knowledge about D&D for free. And it's all in a simple and streamlined rule set, only 64 digest-sized pages to give you a great taste of what these fantasy TTRPGs are like. Next, after you've played a session or two of your first RPG and you feel excited about digging into Dungeons & Dragons 5e specifically, the best place for you to start is with one of the starter sets. No kidding. These starter boxes are my favorite D&D publications and my top recommendation for some really good reasons. 1, at only $10 to $25 each, they're a lot cheaper than a brand new D&D rulebook or adventure. But 2, each starter box contains an abridged D&D rulebook and a low-level adventure. And 3, they also come with dice and other materials depending on which box you get. So this one, from the Essentials kit, with the white dragon on the cover, is my personal favorite because it contains even more dice, a Game Master screen to help you remember important rules while playing, it has cards for more reminders and to use as handouts for the quest hooks, magic items, and other gear, it's got a fold-out map to use during parts of the adventure, but there is a catch. First, just a small one as of scripting this video, the D&D Marketplace has some confusing information about this product. It actually contains 25 magic items, 33 monsters, 14 quest locations, but those all fit into one mini campaign for levels 1 to 6. And the second catch, the Essentials Kit comes with blank character sheets, so you can make your own original characters to play, but for beginners, it's often easier to start an adventure with pre-made characters. You can download some separately for free online, but they are included in both of the other two main D&D starter sets. That's really the main perk of this one, with the blue dragon on the cover. The pre-made character sheets in this box set even include explanations of how to use the equipment and spells and character stats listed on the sheet. My only complaint about this set is that it's kinda one and done. The adventure is very short and fun, but not very flexible or replayable. Now, that brevity can be ideal for new groups. Like, no matter what, you definitely want to introduce D&D to new folks with a no-commitment, one-off adventure. And that said, the Essentials Kit includes those 14 standalone quest locations, and they can be tied into a longer, fun mini-campaign, but overall, this Essentials Kit gives you and the players way more control over how the adventure progresses, which is pretty much why people, like me, enjoy D&D more than video games. You can do, or at least try to do, whatever you want. And a quick note, the marketplace is kinda off for this starter set as well. It actually has 20 monsters, so maybe it's only counting new monsters and magic items, not included in the core rules of the game. I don't know, but the levels are correct. And the marketplace doesn't have a page for the Stranger Things box set, the Rick and Morty box set, or the original D&D 5e starter set. I really hope this one isn't going out of print or something, because it's awesome, but this one was written primarily for people who had experience with older editions of D&D during that initial transition to 5th edition. So, not exactly ideal for brand new GMs and players. Now you've got your dice, and you understand the basic rules of how D&D works. This is actually the perfect time to pick up the basic rules or quick start sets for other games and see what makes them unique and fun in different ways from D&D. So, Dungeon Crawl Classics is very similar, but uses even more weird dice and has the coolest spellcasting in any RPG I've ever played. It has this free 50-page PDF version of the Quick Start Guide and only one core rulebook. Easy D6 is similar, but you get critical successes and failures more often because, you guessed it, the game relies mostly on the D6, not the D20, and DC20 is like D&D, but uses fewer stats and gives characters multiple action points to do more things on their turn or to go all in on something with a higher chance of success and epic degrees of success for a more heroic feel. The full game is in development, but it's gonna be awesome. One more. Cairn follows the same theme and general ideas as D&D, but it uses fewer character stats and it reverses the core roll. Instead of rolling over a number that the GM has to make up, you just need to roll under your own character stat to succeed at a challenge. I've heard this is much easier if you're playing with younger kids. Plus, the full rules of Cairn are only 20 pages long and the PDF version is completely free. And okay, and one more. So, Skate Wizards is literally about being a skateboarding wizard. So hear me out, there are games in every genre for every player, and each one has at least one really fun and unique idea that D&D doesn't have. So even if you're like my group and you mostly play D&D, it's awesome to try one-off sessions or maybe mini campaigns of other games and then steal some of those fun and unique ideas. And yeah, I think it's best to test the waters of other games before or during the period of time when you will fully immerse yourself in the D&D Player's Handbook. Over 300 full-size, full-color pages of rules. AKA the PHB, this baby is the one and only core rulebook of Dungeons & Dragons, despite the publisher trying to sell you 3 core rulebooks. This is a lot. It contains the main character options for the game, which are widely considered to be the best and most beloved character options of D&D 5e. There's a reason D&D is more popular now than ever. And yeah, it's because Stranger Things like tangentially mentioned it a few times, and then a global pandemic forced people inside and made Gen X crave the games of their youth, and the new world of live streaming gave rise to Critical Role, which showed millions of people how to play D&D. But the other reason D&D is more popular than ever is because of this book. It took a lot of the best ideas from the last 40 years of D&D and crammed them into one game. That's why, instead of making a 6th edition this year, they're calling it an update to 5e. After 10 years, they don't really want to change anything, and the fans don't really want them to either. So, despite all that love for these rules, you must understand this from the preface of the D&D 5e 2014 Player's Handbook. To play D&D, and to play it well, you don't need to read all the rules, memorize every detail of the game, or master the fine art of rolling funny-looking dice. None of those things will have any bearing on what's best about the game, end quote. Because what's best about the game is the fun you have with your players, no matter what rules you're using or not using, and anyone who ever tries to tell you that your fun is wrong. Unless your fun somehow hurts somebody else, you're good. And another quick note, the new 2024 5e D&D PHB, I still can't believe we're stuck with that name, has mostly the same materials as this one. The publishers have changed some details and some broad strokes about how some parts of the game work, and I wish there was a more short and clear way to summarize those differences, but at least right now, there's not. However, the publishers also insist that all 50 of these 2014 books will be 100% compatible with every book from the 2024 line, even including the contents of these 2-player handbooks. So, movie magic. This book, The Monster Manual, is kinda for everybody. Typically, it's marketed for game masters, but anecdotally speaking, I think many lifelong fans got into D&D by borrowing and devouring their game master's monster manual because it is chock full of incredible artwork and inspiring lore about what these fantasy creatures do and how they live and interact with fantasy adventurers, mostly through violence, but it's really freaking cool. And if you already have the D&D monster manual, no worries. Pretty much every major RPG company who makes 5e compatible material has published one or more monster books. Kobold Press, Goodman Games, EN Publishing, I don't know how to pronounce that, MCDM, Mage Hand Press, who made this little bestiary just about fantasy monster cats, and for many, many people, these books are just as fun, if not more fun, than the official monster book. I just don't have any of those other big ones because my wife and I like to make our own monsters, but she really, really loves cats. And that's a passable segue into the most popular category of books for players and game masters who just can't get enough of these official rules. I'm talking the expanded rulebooks. So assuming these numbers on your screen from the D&D Marketplace are correct, you can see each of these supplemental rulebooks include fun new options and ideas for players and game masters. But if I had to choose a favorite, it would easily be Xanathar's Guide to Everything because it has some awesome player subclasses, fun low-level magic items, cool spells and feats, and tables of names which are very helpful to a game master, not to mention some helpful optional rules like clarifying that if your character is free-falling, they fall 500 feet per round. I don't know why, but that optional rule lives rent-free in my brain. All that said, with the 2024 rules update, and depending on your budget, you're probably better off skipping this book and its companion, Tasha's Guide to Everything, because we already know that the new 2024 Player's Handbook contains a curated selection of the best fan-favorite player options and rules options from the 2014 PHB and from these 2 books. So don't get me wrong, these 3 books combined have way more material than the new PHB will, but this new PHB promises to have only the highest quality and most popular material rewritten in a way that's easier for everyone to understand and use. Similarly, Mordenkainen Presents Monsters of the Multiverse is a 2014 line official monster book that combined all the monsters and player options from these 2 discontinued books, Volo's Guide to Monsters and Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. So this Presents one contains a ton of stuff, but the upcoming 2024 Monster Manual promises to have all the best stuff from all those books. Still, all those books seemed way more impactful to the community than these other 2 expanded rulebooks, Fizban's Treasury of Dragons and Bigby Presents Glory of the Giants. By the bullet points, these are mostly monster books containing a lot of interesting lore about dragons and giants, which people love. So please let the other people know in the comments which is your favorite of these expanded rulebooks: Xanathar's, Tasha's, Morty's, Fizban's, or Bigby's. Personally, I think the dragon and giant books would have been way more popular if they included more dragon-themed and giant-themed player options. That's why I'm working on a dungeon book with a ton of dungeon-themed monsters and player options, and traps, puzzles, and dungeons to plug right into your game, and tables, tools, and tips for designing, running, and surviving your own fun dungeons. There are a lot of amazing expanded rulebooks out there by other publishers, just like those monster books I mentioned, but shockingly, this may be the first D&D 5e compatible book specifically designed around half the game's title: Dungeons. It's called Delve: How to Build and Survive Deadly Dungeons, and everything in it is being designed for ease of use by the reader. That's the most important thing to me, that people actually use this book. And that's why we're also making cards of the monsters and the magic items and traps, plus handouts and a GM screen, and even bookmarks with helpful information on them. And I'm writing it with Evantier Games, who has a ton of experience publishing great, useful books for 5e. Delve already includes some work by your favorite RPG creators, like this potion mixing magic item by Pointy Hat, this restful but deadly plant thing by Ginny D, and this bugbear orc hybrid by Professor DM, whose main feature is taking no mercy. And as promised, dungeon-themed player options like the Relic Hunter Fighter, the Golomancer Wizard, and the Stoneborn species, so you can play as a living statue or as your adventurer who got partially petrified while exploring the dungeon, and way more exciting stuff. It's all compatible with the 2014 and 2024 D&D, and we're making a version specifically for Shadowdark RPG 2. So go download the free PDF sample of Delve, linked below, and if you can, please support this project while we're in our last few days of crowdfunding. I am incredibly grateful to all 5,000 people who are helping us make this book and allowing us to add even more fun material, like extra player options, extra dungeons, inns and quest givers, and more. Or, if you're seeing this in the future, first of all, hey, I hope 2024 D&D is still pretty fun, and you can still use that link to go and pre-order or buy Delve, the best dungeon-themed expanded rulebook. Thank you. Now you might be wondering, did he even mention the Dungeon Master's Guide yet? The alleged third core rulebook with the PHP and monster manual? Not yet, almost, but next on our list is the relatively new and unique Deck of Many Things. Kind of confusing because the name of this product is the name of a specific D&D magic item that's been part of the game for almost 50 years, but this expanded rulebook contains a ton of new magic items and a bunch of new monsters, and the full package includes a deck of cards with guidelines for how to use them to inspire adventures. All in all, a very unique idea for D&D, but the execution was severely fumbled in the initial print run, where cards were damaged and misshapen, so that kind of spoiled this thing's reputation, and it's just more expensive than a simple book. So depending on who you ask, the Deck of Many Things book is either a diamond in the rough or just the rough, but I never bought it myself to find out. Partially because, here we go, the Dungeon Master's Guide is really like the magic item book as far as most GMs and definitely most players are concerned. It's got over 300 magic items, easily the most magic items of any one D&D 5e book. And sure, there's a lot of great guidelines in here for world building and making the game your own with fun optional rules that were almost the default rules of 5e when the game was in development. But the designers themselves have admitted that the 2014 DMG is not really well organized and therefore not really super helpful for new game masters who should be able to trust the Dungeon Master's Guide to guide them. Since they've addressed all that, I have high hopes for the 2024 DMG, but I still think it's kinda silly that the D&D core rules are about 1,000 pages split into 3 books that each cost the same as an actual core book for any other TTRPG. And with that said, we have covered everything that I personally consider important game material, and we will now cross over into the cool material that you definitely don't need but may inspire you. In other words, this is the stuff you ask for as gifts, or you buy used, flip through it, hopefully find some great ideas in, and then either leave it on your shelf for decades thinking someday I'm going to use that thing again, and maybe you will. or just donate it to somebody else. Campaign settings. These are fun for players and GMs because, like the monster books, they're just filled with fun lore about fantasy worlds. Who doesn't love that? So with this category of book, it mostly comes down to what flavor of fantasy you and your fellow players really like the best. Therefore, I'm going to go right down the list, showing the bullet-pointed contents on screen because, yeah, some of them have way more or fewer magic items than others as I summarize them. Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide was the first setting book published in the D&D 2014 line, and apparently this didn't make much of an impression. It's certainly a good foundation if you want to run games in the 2014 official D&D setting, the Sword Coast region of the Forgotten Realms, but the 2024 books are switching to a different default setting, Greyhawk, and apparently one of the 2014 line adventures repeats a lot of the info you get in here in addition to giving you an adventure. Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica is a setting from Magic the Gathering, a super popular card game owned by the same company that owns D&D, with lots of interesting info on running guilds, which are usually an important part of fantasy settings. Thank you, Elder Scrolls, and a bunch of monsters and magic items, and it gives you a level 1 adventure set in this setting. Acquisitions Incorporated is a weird gem of a book because some people love it, but most people, like me, just never checked it out. It has a more cartoonish tone and style than typical 5e D&D. It includes rules for running a fantasy franchise business and a good amount of other stuff, including a level 1 to 6 adventure. Now, Eberron, Rising from the Last War is a special book. The setting emerged from a contest hosted by D&D during 3rd edition, I believe. People will definitely say it in the comments if I'm wrong, but Eberron is probably the most popular alternate setting for D&D. It's noir, it's pulp, it's steam/sci-punk, and the book itself is widely agreed upon to be very well written. It includes a whole new class, the Artificer, and a very popular species, the Warforged, plus a level 1 adventure. Explorer's Guide to Wildmount is famous for a couple reasons. Superficially, it's just part of the Critical Role universe, which is by far the most popular D&D internet content, but they also do live shows. They have an animated show on Prime. Critical Role is an empire, and Matt Mercer is their emperor. Fan favor aside, this book includes more magic items than any other D&D setting book, a lot of monsters, and not mentioned on the D&D marketplace. But Critical Role's own website says this book includes 4 adventures spanning levels 3 to 12. And like Eberron, it was written primarily by a different studio, so it's just considered to be a fresh take for a D&D book. Now, Mythic Odysseys of Theros is also pretty dang fresh. Another Magic the Gathering setting, this one overtly inspired by Greek mythology, a lot of monsters, gorgeous artwork throughout, cool new character options like the satyr, and still my favorite alt cover of any D&D book with a level 1 adventure. Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft has perhaps more setting information than any D&D setting book because it literally has 17 mini settings called Domains of Dread, plus 22 micro settings, more domains with a bit of information for each one. So less stuff in those bullet points, but people also like it for its toolkit to help run horror adventures, and it has a level 1 adventure. Strixhaven, a Curriculum of Chaos, is another MTG setting as a magical academy, but this book is low-key a joke in the D&D community. Basically, it suffered a similar fate to the Deck of Many Things, not because of manufacturing errors, but design errors. It includes one spell that is a lower level than it should be and available to too many classes that basically allows players to cancel a GM's good rolls. Much like the famous counterspell, it is literally a fun canceling player feature, and power gamers drool over it. It became the only thing this book is known for, which is unfortunate, but it also tells us that even if the rest of this content was pretty good, it really wasn't anything notable. And these 3, Spelljammer, Adventures in Space, Dragonlance, Shadow of the Dragon Queen, and Planescape, Adventures in the Multiverse. These are 3 classic D&D settings that were recreated with either little or zero input from their original creators, so the fans who knew and loved these classic settings from the 80s and 90s generally did not approve of these new versions. Also, Spelljammer contained a snippet of lore that kinda ruined its reputation. Dragonlance came out just before D&D's owner ruined its whole reputation, and Planescape, I don't know if people even gave that one a chance. Again, these books might be decent, but since their contents didn't really stir up any notable excitement after they were released, they just don't seem worth it compared to the other setting books that were truly embraced and are still celebrated by the RPG community. And now, speaking of that community, you watching this video, and by the way, thanks for watching this far. This is way longer than I thought it would be, but I really believe this is a valuable video for people. So if you agree, please give it a thumbs up and maybe comment below with your favorite RPG book not published by D&D to spread the love for more publishers who I just don't have time to cram into this already lengthy video. Thank you. But yeah, if you're primarily a player, or maybe you've only been a player, you'd like to GM but haven't found the right timing, or you need a group, or you just don't know what to run, well, I mostly recommend getting a box set and running that for a few friends and family members. But outside of that, you could try running a one-shot adventure from one of D&D's anthology books. Each one contains at least 6 adventures, typically designed for at least one session of gameplay, maybe a few sessions at most. The trouble is that some of the adventures in each book will be fun, but some will be total flops. That's why, just like a setting book, it's crucial to pick up an anthology that is themed around something you really like. And don't forget, if you want a bunch of purely dungeon-themed adventures, plus player options, monsters, magic items, and guidelines for making your own awesome dungeons, check out Delve. It's freaking tight, but let's go down this list. Tales from the Yawning Portal is set in the Sword Coast city of Waterdeep. Sort of, because it's really 7 classic D&D adventures converted to 5e for levels 1 to 14. And I've only ever heard good things about this one. Besides people complaining that the Tomb of Horrors is too hard. Yeah, it was designed in 1978 to confuse and frustrate players at gaming conventions. Ghosts of Saltmarsh is set in the classic but forthcoming 2024 setting of Greyhawk. It includes 7 classic adventures converted to 5e for levels 1 to 11, and it includes some fun optional rules and even stat blocks for running and designing different kinds of ships for your seafaring adventures. Candlekeep Mysteries is set from a library castle in the Forgotten Realms, but most of the adventures involve being transported elsewhere by books. It includes 17 short adventures for levels 1 to 16, and they're supposed to be mysteries, but to me, they mostly come off as normal D&D adventures. But it does have the most adventures and spans the most levels. Journeys Through the Radiant Citadel was for some reason labeled as a setting book on the D&D marketplace, but I assure you, it is an anthology of 13 adventures for levels 1 to 14, set in an interdimensional utopia called the Radiant Citadel. Notably though, every adventure was inspired by real-world folklore that has not been used or well represented in D&D's past, so this book exposes you to some ideas you won't find anywhere else. And Keys from the Golden Vault is based on a thieves guild sort of organization called the Golden Vault. 13 adventures, levels 1 to 11, and like Dragonlance, this one came out right around the time D&D's owner basically self-destructed their reputation, and it never really rose above that, but anecdotally, I know that my wife has run at least a few of these heist adventures for her online group and said they were pretty good. Actually, we only even have this one because they gave it to everybody at the summit where they invited a bunch of creators to apologize and stuff. Okay, and Quests from the Infinite Staircase is coming soon. 6 classic adventures, levels 1 to 13, I guess set around a location called the Infinite Staircase, which I assume is another interdimensional plane hopping kind of thing. That's actually the same thing as the Radiant Citadel, so I don't know why there's 4 or 5 of these now in D&D lore, but it's time to move on to our final category of books. The adventures, but the big ones, or as I recently heard them called, adventure novels. These books are each 200 to 300 pages filled with content. They provide way more information than you need to run a fun adventure, and in many cases, they lack the connective tissue required to play out as an intuitive and cohesive adventure. So by and large, these adventure novels require days and days of reading, research, and rewriting by the game master before they can be used effectively and that means less free time available to actually play the game. Therefore, I think these big adventures should be treated just like the setting books. Only get one if you're really into its overarching theme, so you can mine it for chunks of material you like, or at least enjoy the lengthy process of turning it into a fun campaign framework for your own group. Princes of the Apocalypse is part overland adventure, part big dungeon adventure, with a theme of clashing elemental forces, earth, air, fire, water, but probably one of the worst examples of requiring a lot of GM homework. At least that's its reputation online and the experience of my wife who tried to run this. Out of the Abyss is a subterranean adventure through the Underdark where your party starts as prisoners and must eventually contend with titanic demonic forces, testing their sanity and survival skills. It's a fun one, but actually kinda maddening as a player to spend the entire campaign underground. Curse of Strahd is a classic and extremely popular gothic horror adventure about working against an evil, extremely powerful vampire, Strahd von Zarovich, in his own tiny plane of existence. Everybody loves this one. It's probably the most popular 5e adventure besides the starter sets. Storm King's Thunder is the one that basically functions like a Sword Coast setting book, where the party must stand with or against some giants. Allegedly also involves a lot of GM homework, and hey, if anyone's still watching and you've played some of these, let us know down in the comments if it was difficult or easy for you to run. Every GM's going to treat these things differently. For example, Tomb of Annihilation is one that I recently ran all the way through, but I did ignore a ton of material actually, but my group loved it. There's some urban adventure in the beginning with dinosaur racing that changed the way I run chase scenes forever. Then a deep jungle hex crawl adventure that, I sped up like a lot because the way the book suggests you run it, it would take years to finish. And then a dungeon adventure that almost turned into a slog, but I hastened that a bit as well. Overall, I love these themes, and even the creator of Adventure Time was consulted on this one, so I really enjoyed it despite the work. Now, Waterdeep Dragon Heist is unique. Unlike most of these going from level 1 to about 12, this is level 1 to 5 in an all-urban setting, and it's somewhat replayable because you can choose one of 4 villains to pit the party against. I really enjoyed it as a player, but my wife said she did have to do a lot of homework for it, and it's supposed to lead right into Waterdeep Dungeon of the Mad Mage, levels 5 to 20. In fact, it is one of 2 D&D 5e major publications that even touches level 20. It is a gigantic mega dungeon all the way down, which is really unique for 5e as well. Again, almost no dungeon-focused material, so I'm making a whole book to fill that gap and filling it with smaller dungeons that are way easier to read and prep and run for your group. Then Baldur's Gate, Descent into Avernus, is the demon and devil-themed adventure that my wife glommed onto Waterdeep Dragon Heist, because apparently the first few levels of this one about Baldur's Gate are very weak and railroady, and allegedly only exist because D&D needed to promote the announcement of the beta for the Baldur's Gate video game in 2019, and even now, she's using a supplement from Evantier Games, the people I'm writing Delve with, to make the Hells part more playable as well. But it does have fun Mad Max themes with infernal war machine vehicles, and we're having a good time. Tyranny of Dragons is a combo of 2 discontinued, less popular adventures about dragon cults that were the first 2 5e campaigns published and apparently involve a lot of GM homework. Are you seeing a pattern here? Same story for Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frostmaiden, which I was honestly it was a letdown for me. I loved the dark Arctic exploration themes, the character secrets, and I loved how this book gives you so much content to work with, but I ended up just finding it exhausting to prep for my game. Curse of Strahd Revamped is not available on the D&D marketplace as far as I could find. I think it just rewrote a couple pieces of the original and then broke the hardcover into multiple small softcover books that came in a box set, so probably just a collector piece. The Wild Beyond the Witchlight is set in the Feywild, so that's fun, and kind of twisted but lighthearted adventure, I guess, famous for providing non-combat options for every encounter, so there's nothing in this book that forces the heroes into a fight. That's unique, and I've mostly heard good things about this one, which makes sense if they put more thought than usual into every single encounter. Then Critical Role, Call of the Netherdeep. You guessed it, takes place in Exandria, the setting of Critical Role's campaigns. It involves deep sea adventures and includes a rival adventuring party, which is very cool. And that's why we're including one in Delve, How to Build and Survive Deadly Dungeons, linked below. Okay, now, I kinda have a personal vendetta against this next book, Phandelver and Below, The Shattered Obelisk. For the quick details, it's an overland, then dungeon adventure on the Sword Coast. But here's the deal. This original 5e starter set, the second best-selling D&D 5e product only behind the Player's Handbook, this included a fun level 1 to 5 adventure called The Lost Mine of Phandelver, so beloved by the community that it has come to be considered a modern classic. And for some time, D&D shared that embrace by making the almost 10-year-old adventure free on D&D Beyond. This was a generous and amazing surprise move, but then they surprised us again by deciding to take that away and just shove the adventure into this new book with a few extra levels. And what scares me the most is that this original 5e starter set is now nowhere to be found on the D&D marketplace. In other words, I think D&D might have self-destructed their second best-selling community-beloved product so they could recycle it into this book. Now, I did see that this is still available on Amazon, but it not being on their own marketplace is really weird to me, so I really hope they didn't discontinue it, even though this book does have the second coolest alternate cover of any D&D book. And finally, Vecna, Eve of Ruin. Really interesting title choice for your last book before relaunching your game with a new core rulebook. It's a level 10 to 20 plane-hopping, epic level, multiversal adventure. And by the way, I totally predicted this coming 2 years ago, with much credit to Jordan, who first called out the connection between the obelisks and Vecna and stuff. But it's also just a big tie-in to Stranger Things, who have recently made Vecna cool in the mainstream media. So cool, in fact, that for a couple days during Season 4, the search term Vecna was more popular than D&D itself. So if I make this video again next year, I'll probably start with a clean slate of just the 2024 D&D 5e books, but we'll see, because I might try more of this stuff. I still really enjoy just adventuring around with the low levels of 5e, and playing other games like Shadowdark, DCC. And if you want a quick overview of all 15 RPGs I tried in 2023, check out this video on your screen. But thank you to all the Bob World Builder patrons who make this possible. Thank you for checking out my dungeon book, Delve, and for all the support with likes and comments and sharing these videos. It all really does help. Keep building.